Good evening and welcome to the show that gets stuck into politicians with the gloves off, or gloves on, should we risk the full internal. In the news this week, the chairman of the Meat Marketing Board goes public as he asks consumers to keep the latest BSE scare in perspective. In Huntingdon, the strain of having John back at home is taking its toll on Norma Major. And in Aldershot, British troops redouble their commitment in training after the introduction of Noel Edmonds inflatables. On Ian Hislop's team, a comedian who says he's a bit fed up with being described as a twinkly-eyed bloke next door, so please welcome that bug-eyed woman from 2 doors down, Jeff Green. And with Paul Merton tonight is a motoring expert and art critic, so if you're thinking of robbing an art gallery and you need a getaway driver, he's your man, Brian Sewell. And so for the link into round one, which that just was, Ian and Jeff.
Who's that? Jeffrey, what's his face?
Robinson.
Robinson, that's correct, yes.
What's his face will do.
There's what's his face as well, isn't it? Oh, dandruff check. Jeffrey Robinson's he's Tony Blair's millionaire friend, isn't he? And who they've just found out. He was the chap that was bringing in this rule about £50,000 savings. Obviously, your eyes watered. And
Yes.
Jeffrey Robinson is the Paymaster General. He works in the Treasury, which is in charge of tax. So it is slightly embarrassing that he should be the major beneficiary of a Guernsey trust of 12.75 million.
And Peter Lilly has accused all these Tories, haven't they? Not Tories, Labour people.
It's just easy to confuse.
He's saying that this Jeffrey Robinson to do the honourable thing and deny it.
Mm. And who's come to his defence? Who's rallied to his defence?
No one. No, who's rallied to his defence?
That's one way of describing it.
What paper do you read? I only picked up on these little bits and pieces. You're obviously clearly boned up on the thing.
Every paper. Well, the Star. Cecil Parkinson has rallied to his defence.
Of course he would.
Yeah. There's been no wrongdoing, he said. That's according to Cecil Parkinson. It's rather like getting a job reference from Ronnie Biggs, really, isn't it? And what about these new schemes? The new the things to replace Tessers and Peps? What are they going to be called?
Izzers.
Are they piss? No.
Piss?
Piss. They might be called piss.
There was a headline saying piss and bottoms, wasn't there?
Different story, Brian.
Oh, sorry. God!
You obviously read the Star as well. Isers or Isers, yes. Isers, I think, is how you're supposed to say it.
You guys are quite eggheads, aren't you? You know everything. I just want to...
I was going to say only in comparison.
Did we all go to comprehensive?
No.
No. You, Brian?
Did you go to an incomprehensive?
That's a very good description of that.
I love your accent, Brian. I bet even the Queen laughs at it, doesn't she?
Anyway, Paul and Brian.
So there's a train going past the mountain.
It's Fuji.
Fuji, yeah. The dust storm there, quite obvious. And there's toxic emissions. This is probably about global warming, is it? Oh, blimey, look, watch out! Too late, there's a bit of ice falling off.
Yeah.
That's flood.
Yeah, I'd never build a house in the river.
That's a hedgehog.
A hedgehog. It's about global warming. There's a conference in Japan, Mount Fuji. Do we reckon that's Mount Fuji?
It's always Mount Fuji.
Mm. Well, it's always Mount Fuji. It doesn't sort of change its identity.
No. But it's sort of saving on petrol and saving on household fuel and not digging up coal and turning it into gas and electricity. In other words, behave like good little boys and stop global warming. Otherwise, there will be more baby hedgehogs than there ought to be.
Isn't it less baby hedgehogs?
Fewer.
Fewer.
So, just to
Can I say it's a privilege to be corrected by you?
The problem is, you see, it's now so warm that there's a second rut for hedgehogs. So when winter comes, as it now has, there are a lot of baby hedgehogs who have not learned the trick of hibernating. So there's some marvellous old duck in Yorkshire who's rescued 167 of them and is feeding them with, you know, drip and so on. And we should all be feeding baby hedgehogs unless we stop burning coal fires.
You could burn the baby hedgehogs, that would save...
Oh, no. No, that's what gypsies do.
Really?
Gypsies put hedgehogs in mud, and then they put this great sort of lump of mud into the fire. And when it's done, when they guess that it's done, they take it out, break the mud,
And throw them at Brian's
and off
windows.
come all the bristles.
So you get kind of baked hedgehog, so you can eat it and use it as a toothpick at the same time?
Well, no, the toothpicks are stuck in the mud.
Oh, I see. That's quite tasty.
And that's very clever.
Yes.
You've never lived in the country.
Which country?
But surely it used to be that it was all down to bovine flatulence, wasn't it? They said this was they said cows don't break wind, they smash it.
But this-
and that's clearly the trouble with the fact that they're all this methane and such like. That's all swept under the carpet now, is it?
You can't sweep methane under the carpet.
It's a good party game, though. Worth trying.
Yes, this is the news that global warming is well and truly underway. Global warming may mean that Britain could actually get colder, according to The Guardian. Only little polar willows would grow amid the mosses. Instead of red deers and badgers, there would be muskox and polar bears. There would be no crops, but hardly any weeding either. Although piss-poor journalism will continue as usual. Ian and Jeff, a revolving pun for you. Peter Pan. What's that about?
This is a story about Peter Stringfellow.
Oh, is it? OK.
There was a poll conducted about who young boys would not like to be when they grow up. And top of the poll was Peter Stringfellow. It was the sort of, I really don't want to end up like that.
Yeah, right.
His quote this week was that lads should treat me as a role model, and this is what he looks like. That's what we should all aim for, guys.
Do you have nylon sheets at home? Or
I saw Peter Stringfellow and he said, when I came on Have I Got News for You, you were very nice to me, but Paul was an absolute bastard. Which shows his memory's gone as well.
I was very pleasant to him.
You did make a joke about his hairstyle being...
Older than the girl he was going out.
That's not very nice, is it?
But stunningly accurate.
Have you ever met Peter, Brian?
Now, which night is it you go to his club? Tuesday, obviously.
Have you set foot inside Stringfellows?
No, of course not.
Have you set anything inside
Anyway, this is the recent survey which finds Peter Stringfellow topping a list of 60 as the man that young people would least like to be. The survey shows that young people would rather grow up to be Fred West than William Hague. So a dead serial killer is more popular than the current Tory leader. Still some work for the spin doctors there, I think. And finally, Paul and Brian, Tony Blair. Who does that refer to?
Tony Blair, clearly.
Yes.
Refers to him.
Well done.
I don't know why it should be Toony, though. He was...
He plays the guitar. Does that help?
That'd be Tuny. I'm sorry to correct you.
Only an Islington.
I'll try and do it fewer.
Cartoons, you think?
He has become a cartoon. There's a cartoon magazine called 2000 AD, which I read. No, I don't. And they've made him a cartoon character in it. It sounded terrific. And he kills people by smiling. It's true. And he's got a spin doctor called Dr. Spin.
Am I the only person who doesn't know what a spin doctor is?
It's not terribly important. He's a man who comes to the scene of an accident and says, no, this bloke's fine, get up, get up. That's what spin doctors do, is disseminate
Well, they're all
propaganda.
little Dr. Goebbels again.
Well, he was a spin doctor of sorts.
Well,
He was a proper doctor first.
yes.
And a Nazi, of course. But,
He was a hair doctor.
Oh, that Dr. Goebbels. I didn't know who you were talking about.
Dr. Goebbels.
That's his name, isn't it?
Yes, yes, it is, yes.
It is in my book.
It's the equivalent of an umlaut.
Gurr.
The equivalent of a what?
An umlaut.
What's an umlaut?
An umlaut is 2 dots. I won't say diaresis. 2 dots over the O modifies the sound from go to gur.
I see.
And so does an E following the O.
So you know all that, but you don't know what a spin doctor is. I should get out more.
I think I should get out.
I meant you.
Yeah. And how are the various people depicted? How is Haig depicted?
Is he just a little head popping about?
There's a very interesting picture of a single sperm in the Independent last week.
I suppose the one that's married.
Is there any
It was
connection
about
between William
puncturing
Hague and this picture?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I see.
Yes,
The sperm's older.
All right. Yes, it all begins to make sense. Thank you. Yes, this is the news that Tony Blair features in the sci-fi comic 2000 AD. In the comic strip, Blair's sworn enemies are depicted as a cabal of evil Tories, featuring grotesque satanic caricatures of Howard, Redwood and Haig, and an extremely flattering portrait of Anne Widdecombe. At one point, Neil Hamilton says, "I'll bung you a fistful of fibres if you'll just let us go," to which Blair replies, "No deal, Neil," and knocks his teeth out. Completely implausible, of course, as in real life Christine would step in and nut him. So, at the end of that round, it looks like Paul and Brian have a frankly minuscule 2, whilst Ian and Jeff have a quite vast 6.
Wow.
Before the unlikely enjoyment of round 2, the guaranteed discomfort that is our caption competition, Paul and Brian, you have this to look at. Ian and Jeff have that. And we'll be back for that after this. If you haven't seen the show before, you won't be surprised that for round 2 we turn our attention to the world of culture and the fine arts. A number of obscure works of art to identify, and to add to the excitement, all they get to go on is a small detail. Experts first, so Ian and Jeff. Your tiny part looks like this.
Oh dear.
This is a Hogarth painting. And I think it's the music case has been thrown down. There's some cards in the background, and I think it's marriage à la mode, where everyone's bored of being married to each other, and they've kicked the thing over. Because Hogarth's 300, it's his birthday, and I'm sure you've put that on as a tribute.
And they named a roundabout after him, didn't they?
They did.
Nice guy.
A lasting memory to the greatest satirist of all time.
You are right, it is from a series called Marriage à la mode, but it's one of that series.
He's got very thin legs, hasn't he? This Hogarth chap.
Hogarth the painter, that's someone
sorry.
in it.
I think, yeah, OK, fine.
Can't we see the whole picture?
No, because Brian's going to tell us now which of the series it was.
OK.
Aren't you, Brian?
It's the morning after, or whatever it's called. But
I was looking for something...
She is leaning back, yawning with boredom, and this violin case, which is open, is a symbol of her having... Oh, well, violin cases and shoes and so on were, in the 18th century, signs, symbols of the female pudenda. Putting your violin in a violin case is
What about double bass?
That's just
that
Paul
is called a
showing
lady's
off now.
comforter.
Yes, well, you have described it absolutely perfectly. If we could just have a look at the painting now. It is, in fact,
wow.
absolutely right. Although it's called tête-à-tête, which I don't think is French for morning after.
Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Where did this information come from?
My researchers.
Oh, I shouldn't rely on them.
Can I just ask, What's the point of this bit? In a topical news quiz.
Well, that will become apparent later.
When?
Next Tuesday.
Right. Between what hours?
7 and 9.
Thank you.
In the morning.
The topicality of it...
The topicality of it, yes.
Yes, is that it's hanging in the National Gallery, which, of course, was recently in the news, because we might have to pay to get in shortly.
It's been hanging in the National Gallery for years and years and years.
Yeah.
They've just moved it from one room to another, and that's hardly news.
No. It was the admission fee that they're about to charge for people to get into the National Gallery that was the news.
But they're not.
Well, they might do. They said
Not
they
at the National Gallery.
How do you know?
My ear is close to the ground.
Well, how can you hear anything?
A bit like one of those Picasso pictures.
Anyway, it's that painting from that series.
Is there any much more of this?
No.
I'm knackered.
I am. Pleased to meet you. Hogarth became famous for his... Hogarth became famous
For his... I think your chair's plugged in.
Too much.
Well, that's all we've time for.
Oh, well, we can all play that. Next picture, please.
Not at all. Yes, on we go. Next one. Paul and Brian, your edited highlight. Any idea?
It's vaguely intestinal, isn't it? It's that thing in the Tate Gallery that makes it look like the toy department in Harrods. It's a great, long, sort of convoluted toy by one of those silly women who went in for the Turner Prize.
What is this meant to be?
Yes, Brian, tell us.
It's conceptual.
Yes, it is.
The trouble with conceptual art is that you have to bring your concept to the art. You say what it is. I mean, lecturers stand in front of this kind of stuff, and people say, what does it mean? It means whatever you want it to mean.
Seems a bit
conceptual
lazy,
art.
isn't it?
Of course it's lazy,
And why has it been in the news this week?
because it didn't win the Turner Prize.
And what did?
The Gillian Waring thing of... I've forgotten what it's called. It's a video of policemen sitting still for an hour. and
Police
doing their
Stop,
best
I think
not
it's
to
called.
titter.
60 Minutes Silence is actually what it was called. Yes.
Does it matter? Does any of it matter?
Well, it matters to her, I think.
Well,
She got 20,000
I don't think
pounds.
it should matter to us.
I've got a feeling it doesn't. This is like this show, the Antiques Roadshow.
So this is a detail from one of the finalists for the Turner Prize superstructure
Wow,
with
that was a bit
satellites. There it is. According to artist Angela Bullock, it's an interactive beanbag sculpture, or as traditionalists call it, a sofa. The Turner Prize was won this week by Gillian Waring for her video piece 60 Minutes Silence, in which a group of policemen looked blankly at the camera for 60 minutes. Asked how she made it, she said she just taped the Bill Christmas special. Ian and Jeff, your tiny part?
Ooh, is that Peter Mandelson's passport photo? That's real?
Yeah, that's a shark.
Okay, really?
That's a Damien Hirst shark.
Ah.
Stuffed in formaldehyde.
Where is it? And
There's some mad restaurant, isn't there, that he has all his stuff in, I don't know, in Soho.
no, it isn't. It's in something called the Sensation Exhibition, which has a number of rather bizarre things in it. Have you seen this? Are you a fan?
Are you looking at me?
Yeah.
Oh, you do De Niro as well, do you?
Of course I've seen it. I have to see it.
And one of the artists was on Channel 4 this week. Did you see that?
Yeah, well, one of the previous artists was on, getting completely blotto.
Tracy Thing, yes.
Tracy Thing.
Tracy
Women, I
Thing,
think,
yes.
but
Is that
yes.
her exact name?
The woman who embroidered the names of everybody she's ever slept with inside a tent.
And then displayed the tent.
Yes, Fergie was going to do the same thing, but she couldn't find a marquee large enough.
There's an idea for the Millennium Tent.
Yes, this is Damien Hirst's work, The Physical Impossibility of Death in the Mind of Someone Living. In his new book, Hirst describes the process of making his artwork. A guy from a knacker's yard cuts the hard bone areas, then he delivers it to us, where we have to inject it constantly before it decays in a swimming pool-sized tank of formaldehyde, taking all the shit out of its stomach and sawing it into chunks. In fact, much the same process used by kebab vans everywhere. And finally, Paul and Brian, your last detail.
Is it the EastEnders title sequence?
I haven't the foggiest idea.
Is it azure horizontal nestling between yellow and off beige? By Jasper Wilberforce, 1946.
Is it a detail from a Van Gogh?
Why do you say that?
It might be the sunflowers. I imagine it's something very obvious to try and embarrass everybody.
Well, you've just got it. It is, in fact, Van Gogh's famous sunflowers.
Hey.
Is it genuine?
Exactly, or is it fake? That's what I was going to ask you. Because it's been in the news recently, because there is a fake one floating around.
Well, according to that stupid woman, yes.
Which one of the many stupid women?
Yeah, this one's signed, so it's not the one she's talking about.
Well done, yes, well spotted. The signature on the vase is the difference between the fake and the real one.
Well, not necessarily. The signature is in every brushstroke. You don't have to write your name on things for people to know whether they're right or wrong.
No, but the one that's faked didn't have his name on
It's
the
not
on the vase.
faked. It's perfectly genuine, and she is wrong. She's the fake. She doesn't know anything about pictures. And is
Can we
constantly
name
writing
her?
about them.
Because otherwise there's no work for all those lawyers.
Vincent van Gogh is the creator of many classic works, including The Sunflowers, Dr. Gachet and The Chair, although during his lifetime he only sold one painting, the less well-known Chimpanzee on the Toilet, which still life brings this blue period to an end, and the picture is that Paul and Brian have a rather unpalatable 4, whilst Ian and Jeff are easily ahead with 12. And so to our final missing words round, featuring some of this week's headlines from the papers and happily even fewer from this week's guest publication, The Trombonist, published on the 1st of March, July and November. Useful information if you want to avoid it. So, to your marks. 4. Has what a future in Britain?
Archaeology.
No, it's not the right answer.
Trombones. Plastic trombones. Trombones made of human flesh. Use somebody's esophagus as the mouthpiece and bagpipes, I don't know, cheese, bucket.
Paul, you were right first time with the trombone. Has the trombone a future in Britain?
Yeah, good.
Next, have what will travel?
Trombone.
Trombone.
Yes, well anticipated. Next, Haig devises what for Tories?
Fion Rota. Haig devises Fion Rota. I finally cracked him.
No, it is in fact a new slogan, popular conservatism. Next, cabbies cut up rough over what?
Over going south of the river at this time of night.
Well, they do, but that's not.
Trombone players who do it while driving.
There's a lot of sort of trombonists now who are hiring their instruments out as minicabs. They pull up, like that, and get on the back, like that. They put wheels on them.
No, it is in fact cabbies cut up rough over dress code. There's a dress code banning every cabbie not wearing a collar and tie, smart trousers and dress shoes.
Where is this?
I think it was Doncaster or something like that.
Oh, doesn't matter then, does it?
Terrible.
Next, what is there a cure?
Trombone up your jacksie.
Is it Noel Edmonds?
We'll give Paul 1 for trombone up your jacksie. Bass trombonists is the answer. And finally, what kills off the office?
Family-run business. Family-run business kills off the office romance. Do you see what I'm getting at? It's incest, basically, is what I'm getting at.
Defective sperm.
What?
Defective sperm.
No.
I thought you said detective sperm. Policeman.
It was in the Independent on
Could be a
Monday.
new series.
Yeah, detective sperm.
Is it
He always gets his
flirting?
man.
Get John Thor to play him.
Yeah.
Yes.
2-hour specials would be
Yeah.
brilliant at Christmas.
How did you know sperm? What gave me away?
You left a trail.
He ejaculated.
You're right, it is flirting. Well done. Fear of
We didn't
flirting.
say that.
to be
Fair play.
precise.
No, I did.
Oh, did you?
When you were having laughs.
No.
The fear of flirting, which is caused by overzealous political correctness, according to some ugly American woman who's probably a lesbian anyway. All of which blatant exhibitionism signals the end of tonight's Rogues Gallery, and the upshot is that this week's Jackson Pollocks are Paul and Brian with 9, whilst this week's Old Masters are Ian and Jeff with 16. So, a kick around with Man United for our winners, a kick around with Mandela United for our losers.
Mrs. Mandela, yes, of course. You left out the cow with a long tongue.
Are you referring to the caption competition at all?
Yes.
It's about to arrive.
It's curious you should mention that because...
it comes now. But you're winding up the programme.
Have you ever watched this show before, Brian?
It's too late for me.
Yes, no matter. So before that, the unwelcome return of our caption competition. Ian and Jeff, this was yours.
Good evening. We're the Turner Prize.
Thank you. Paul and Brian, what do you think of for this?
Is Tony Blair saying, who's nicked me raspberry mivvy? Oh, it's you.
Raspberry what?
Mivvy. He was an artist during the Restoration period, 1487 to 1562.
And I leave you with news that the board of the Royal Opera House has come in for more criticism as they stage a production of Desert Orchid, the musical. Princess Anne tries to remember what day it was they were going to scuttle the Royal Yacht Britannia. And at an ITV photo call, Cilla Black arrives just a little too late to put her makeup on. Good night.